everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Katrina. I'm a non-pro Reiner located in Alberta, Canada, and today I'm just going to run you through how I warm up my horse for my typical ride. So this is me getting on him. I haven't done anything else with him, so I get on, and I'll usually start my ride by doing lateral flexion. Lots and lots of lateral flexion. He was feeling super soft today, so I didn't do a whole lot of that before I pushed him off into a walk. And so with my warm-ups, I don't want to pick on my horse at all. I just want to get the blood pumping, make sure he's listening to my seat, to my legs, that he's soft in my hands, and then we don't have any issues there. So yeah, just starting off with a walk, just let him stretch out a bit before I start picking up on him. So once I've walked a little bit, I'll start asking for his face a little bit just to get soft in the vertical a few times before I ask him to pick up a jog. So before I ask for the job, I'll round him up a little bit and then ask him to move into the jog. Like I said, I'm not picking on him here in the warm-up. This is just more just getting blood flowing and just making sure we've got the very basics of stop, go, left, right working. So I asked him there for the jog and tried to, if possible, get him to stay level, not lifting up his head as I moved into the jog. And so again, as I go into the jog, I'm asking for roundness right away. So I don't want to warm my horse up without asking for roundness, because I want his back muscles firing and all that good stuff. And so asking him for roundness right off the bat is how I'm going to get that. One thing I did work on with him a bit here. He has a tendency to always push his right shoulder out of the circle and overbend when we're going counterclockwise like we are here. So while I was doing this warm-up, while I was mainly focusing on just vertical flexion, I was also pushing him to the left a little bit just to remind him that we need to keep that shoulder up underneath of us rather than overbending and pushing that shoulder out. I want him straight and just 100% underneath me rather than pushing that shoulder out. And that's something I have to work on with him a lot. It's a thing I have to constantly be working on with him. And so as you can see here, I'll ask for a bit of collection and roundness, and then once he's soft, I let him go. Like I said, not picking on him yet, not asking for anything fancy yet. It's no different than you maybe walking on the treadmill a bit before you go and do some weight training or something like that. We just want to get some blood into all the parts of the body. And then I push him into a lope. And it's the same thing here as it was with the jog. Just asking for a bit of roundness, making sure we have all our basic buttons and not really picking on him. And also just working on keeping that shoulder up underneath us. Even in the lope, we're on the left lead right now. You think he would have his right shoulder up underneath us, but he doesn't. He really pushes it over. So in this ride specifically, I felt like I was really having to work at keeping that shoulder up underneath us. And so how I do that is outside leg, but also kind of lifting my hands up diagonally towards my inside shoulder, just to try and keep that shoulder moving over. And so there's nothing fancy here. This is the boring part of horse training, I guess you could say. No fancy maneuvers, just roundness and getting his heart rate up so that when we do go do some more advanced stuff in the actual meat of our ride, he's going to have everything warmed up and he'll be less susceptible to injury. I will say one thing I am working on with him, he's really soft vertically, but as soon as I add some lateral movement on top of that, he tends to stiffen up. And you'll see in certain spots here when I do push his shoulder over, he tends to lift his head up a bit. So that's something we're working on. And then I'll stop him. And as always, every time that I stop my horse, I back them up. I want that automatic, that when I ask them to stop, they put their butt into the ground and then they suck back and take some steps backwards just to really reinforce that stop. And then, of course, again, I will do some lateral flexion before we head off in the other direction. So from here, I will go and do the exact same thing in the other direction. I won't show you guys that because it's literally the exact same thing as in this direction. But again, working both sides of the horse evenly. So after I've got the blood pumping and all that good stuff, now we're going to move into a bit more advanced work, I guess. If you're on a younger horse, this might actually be the bulk of your ride. With Diesel, I've been doing this with him all summer, so he's familiar with these things, and it's more of just checking in on him before we go into the things we actually need to work on. So with this, I'm asking for his nose and just waiting for softness. Some people call this the shoulder up drill. And you can see I started on the right side, now I'm doing the left side. When I was first teaching it, I would stay on one side, get that side finished, and then go to the other side. But now that Diesel's a bit more advanced, I can go back and forth. And I'm pretty sure I've shown this drill in an earlier video that I posted. So this is just making sure that he's nice and soft laterally from side to side while we have forward motion, because it's one thing to be soft when you're at a standstill. It's another thing to be soft and also adding movement from, into the mix of everything. So I'll work on this until I feel like he's moving, bringing his head around nice and soft, moving on, keeping a good forward momentum. This is one thing that's hard with this drill, is keeping forward momentum, because you're bringing his head around. Diesel has a tendency to want to quit on me a bit, so making sure that he keeps that forward momentum, driving up underneath himself as he's making those small turns. And I know with Diesel, he will get a bit, I don't know what the word is, just maybe not frustrated, but he just kind of gets over this drill really fast. So I have to be really careful that once he's doing it good for me, that I just leave him alone. So we stopped there. I soften him vertically again a little bit. Soften him laterally. And usually after I've done a bit of work, so we've warmed up, we've done this shoulder up drill, usually now he's quite a bit softer. He's kind of loosened everything up and he's nice and soft. So as you can see here, for the most part, when I bring his head around from side to side, he softens fairly quickly. And then I move on to what I call yielding the hindquarters at a standstill. So while I have his head brought around, I move my inside leg back and apply it to ask him to move his hip over. So again, it's just making sure that we have lateral movement working, that he's moving off my leg. I want him to move off it without me having to apply too much pressure with my leg. Once he's moved over a bit, he's crossed over with those hind legs, I stop applying my leg and then just wait for him to soften with his face before I release. And then I'll go on, do the exact same thing on the other side, because remember, it's no different than teaching yourself to write with your left hand and to write with your right hand. You need to teach each side individually. You can't expect one side to be good just because you've practiced it on the other side. And so here I'm just waiting for him to soften a bit. And once he softens, I will release that rein immediately. So, and then release. So I was happy with that. He was moving off my leg really good, so happy with that. So that means that we can move on to the next part of our warm-up. So again, I always ask for lots of roundness regardless of what I'm doing with my horse. And here now we're going to start working a bit on leg yielding. So asking him to kind of move diagonally, keeping forward momentum though, and moving off that inside leg, crossing his legs over. And one thing I'm working on him right now, which in this ride specifically, after I finished my warm-up, I went back and did more leg yielding. He has a tendency to put his head in the air when I ask for that lateral movement in the leg yield. So what I need to work on is making sure that he stays nice and round and soft in my hands when I apply that inside leg. I don't want him to kind of be rooting his nose in the air. You can kind of see it there. His head's just in the air, which means that his back is hollow and he's not in an athletic position. As a reiner, I'm not going to be specifically doing leg yielding, but this bleeds into everything else that I do. Leg yielding is just one of those stepping stone maneuvers to other things like flying lead changes. So that's basically my warm-up. I hope you guys enjoyed this voiceover. If you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments below. And until next time, remember, it's always a good day to ride.